has been 83 years, but I have got to film this video. I read so many books this summer, and I managed to read mostly ARCs. I got approved for a lot more than I expected. I haven't gotten approved for some of my most wanted, so NetGalley, if you're out there, hit a girl up with the Camelot Betrayal. Please, please, I'm begging you. I have already been denied Addie LaRue. You're my only hope. Anyway, I have a cheat sheet because I read so many ARCs that I need to keep track of how many stars I gave them, kind of what the pros and cons were, and if they're out now or when they'll be released if they aren't out by the time this video airs, which is like probably going to be the end of this week. I'm in school now, so editing videos is not a high priority for me. Getting good grades is. But I'm back in school now. Editing is not really high on my priority list. A lot more things are really on my priority list than this, but I made the list. Might as well give you a video about what I read because that's fair to the people who wrote the books. And I read some really good ARCs this year. I read some really bad ones too. Could you stop running around in the background? You're beautiful, but you are jingly as all hell. I love her, but oh my god. For the most part, I know that people try to separate the ARCs by when they're released. That way you can know what's out and what the opinions are before they come out. But like, I'm all over the place when I get approved for stuff. Sometimes I get approved for things like 2 days before they release. So I can't do it so much. And some of these, I couldn't read them until after they were released. And that's the case with, I think, Axiom's End I read a week after it came out because it was in the middle of a reading rush. And I was reading for that, which in retrospect. So some of these are out. Some of these are going to be released in the fall. But I've got to cut it off now or I'm going to keep putting books in this list and it's already obscene. So I'm going to try to be a little bit shorter with my reviews here. All of these things are on my Goodreads. The only things I do complete complex reviews for are books that I get from NetGalley because I feel like that's a fair trade. If you're going to give me the book for free to read before anyone else, then you get a really in-depth pro-con review. So I'm going to just really do short, succinct things after this point to let you know which books were kind of on a good list and which ones are on the don't read list. And I might add some extra information, but for the most part, this is going to be short. Go to Goodreads if you want to see my full thoughts. So the first book on my list is Sword in the Stars by Corey McCarthy and Amy Rose Capetta. That one's available now. I gave it 2 stars. I don't know if maybe I suffered from this one because I didn't read Once and Future, which came out last year, but this book just did not get me. My pros, it's a pretty cool world, I guess, cool world building. There are lots of characters to get to know. It's a time travel retelling, which is a unique way to do a historical retelling, and the leads are pretty fully fleshed out for the most part. The cons, it's more static characters than dynamic. A lot of them only exist to exist. They don't have an effect on the plot. They don't have effect on other characters. They just fill a void. How did they win? I don't understand the entire climax of the book. Like, it just was not it. It's like it was written for middle grade and YA, but it was successful at neither of those things. Another little nitpicky thing for me is at the very end, there's this kind of meta commentary on different iterations of Arthur. Like Merlin has a little thing where he collects different versions of it, and they're talking about the Merlin TV show, and they talk about another book series that does Merlin, and they even like self-reference Once and Future, and that's just kitschy and stupid. Like, it just really is. It's like, okay. But at the same time, I gave it 2 stars, and I do recommend people who like the first one read it because you can tell there's an audience for this, and that they will like it, and it's just innocent fun, I guess, for the people who do like it. Do with it what you will. The next book on my list is More Than Just a Pretty Face by Syed M. Masood. I gave it 4 stars. It's available to read now. Pros. It was really cute. It had likable protagonists. The stakes were super realistic. It's basically the story of a boy who is very handsome, but not all there intelligence-wise, and he knows this, and he's trying to impress this one girl by winning this huge project for his school. Well, he ends up getting help from this other girl that his parents wanted to marry, and it's just, I just like fake relationship style things, and that's what this kind of had. The love story is very organic. It stems from their kind of like friendship and relationship, and it has real world issues plus real world weight. And the way I can explain this is sometimes these YA romances, they make the the conflict, you know, bigger than it has to be. This one is pretty realistic. He's from a devout Muslim Southeast Asian family, and he has, you know, religious beliefs. And I think it's really refreshing to see a character like this that's not trying to go against his beliefs. He does want to do as best he can. You know, he's not the most devout. He actually has some drama with his friend that he thinks is going too far into it, and it's becoming detrimental to his mindset, and they have some good discussions. And again, I can't speak from a background of understanding that, but I'm Christian, and I have friends that are, you know, a little bit more devout, quote unquote, than I am, and sometimes it can be really uncomfortable to have those discussions. And I think that this book did a really great job of showing that side of the Muslim faith. The girl his parents want him to marry, she carries some baggage with her from when she moved from across the country. And so it's not that she's some perfect person for him to marry as well, and he has to reconcile that with his family and his faith. And so I really liked that there was some real weight to this. The cons, it was a little cheesy. The title comes from the fact that, like, he's hot, and so it's like, you know, I'm more than just a pretty face. It's like, no one says that. And especially guys, like, I guess don't do that, but there's just all over, there's a bunch of really cheesy lines, and I love cheese, and I love puns, but these are bad. The ending is a little bit too wrapped up. It spends the whole book working to the big competition for the speech, but then the real meat of, like, the drama with his future bride basically takes place in one chapter, and I just felt like it was very brushed over, and I wanted some actual discussion on that. But it gave it 4 stars. Like, read the book. It's very cute. If you're looking for, like, a little lighthearted, own voices kind of romance, then this is what you're looking for. The next book I read was The Year Shakespeare Ruined My Life by Danny Jansen. It comes out on the 22nd of September of this year, and I gave it 4 stars. Look, I love Shakespeare, and I like seeing people talk about the aspects of theater that aren't acting on stage. So this one is about a girl who gets basically... she gets wrangled into basically co-directing a play. Like, she's supposed to be the producer, but she's, like, all but being in the play. She's the stage manager, and she's, like, helping the director cast it, and the stuff that she has to do is things that I didn't have to do until I was in college, but it's just so funny to see her interact with the tech aspect of theater, because we don't see a lot of stuff about that. I think the pros are, it's a very cute female-female romance. Like, she falls pretty hard for one of the actresses in the play, and it's very cute. I love it when 2 characters are, like, complete opposites, but they work. It's got real stakes. She's trying to get the valedictorian spot, so that's why she was even in the play in the first place. Which, pause, did anyone else's high school, like, have teachers vote for the valedictorian? Like, you have to decide who the valedictorian is? Because that's her whole drama, is that she's making sure all the teachers will pick her for valedictorian. At my school, it was strictly based on GPA. I had never heard this before, and I did Google it, and apparently that's common in some places. But did you ever go to a school like that did that? Because that doesn't make sense to me. Like, it just doesn't make sense. But anyway, she's competing with a guy who is in the play for the valedictorianship. And I think it's fun and realistically high school. Like, the drama isn't too much drama. It's just, like, not communicating with your friends properly and learning how to open up about things that stress you. And, like, hey, sometimes you've got to stop doing this one thing so you can do this other thing that you have to do. Like, you've got to learn to balance your time. I think the characters felt like they were in high school, which is really nice to see. The pacing was really quick, though. This is one of my cons. The pacing was very quick. It would cut from, like, a week to a week between, like, scenes. So sometimes you really had to kind of catch up. And I know, like, putting on a play takes months. So the author can't show us the entire thing. But it did take place very quickly. It was weirdly immature in places. Sometimes I forgot that this was basically a senior. That being said, this could comfortably be read down into, like, middle grades, I think, and would still be completely acceptable to read. It's just maybe not going to please maybe new adult readers. It's a little bit too immature for that. There's no real conclusion. You don't find out if she makes valedictorian, like, spoiler alert, but that's not the point. Like, I don't mind too much that I didn't find out, because what I did get was really cute. And it was never about the valedictorian. It was about her learning how to manage stressful situations, which I think is a very valid thing to write about. The next thing I read was Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. That is 5 stars. It's available now. I cannot wait to read the next book. I've still got to pick up Chloe Brown. Read this book. Read it. Pros. Cinnamon roll at beefcake love interest. Like, Zafir is great. We love him. We stan. Smarter Than You by a Witch. Danny Brown is the smartest woman you'll ever meet. She's a witch. Makes no apologies. Love her. It has all the cliches. At the actual best ones. We love fake dating. Like, oh gosh, what else? It's just, I love it. It's all the good stuff that I want in a romance in this book. Great side characters. I would read a book about Zafir's sister-in-law right now. She is intriguing. I want to know more. All the side characters, and not just like Chloe Brown, who I know we have a book on, and their sister, who I know is getting the book next year. I want everybody. Give me everybody's backstory, because they're all really good characters, and I think that speaks to Talia Hibbert's expertise as an author, where the romance is so beautiful and well developed. The characters, you know, they come into their own, like, uniquely on their own, and then end up together, because they both bring baggage to this relationship. But also, she makes you care about the background. Sometimes the background characters in romance novels can just be to get the other characters to do something. These aren't. They feel like they have their own motivations for things they do, and I love that. The cons, it's not long enough. That's really just me being picky. I mean, I just wanted more of it. I thought it was really good. And it's a little bit insta-lovey, but it's not when you... It is, but it isn't. It's insta-love, but not in the, like, very dramatic YA, like, paranormal romance type of insta-love where they see each other and lock eyes and they just feel a connection. These characters have kind of had, like, their eyes on each other for a couple months working together, and they both feel something for the other one without the other one knowing it, and the fake dating just kind of spurs that on, which is why we love fake dating, and we stand fake dating in this house. The next thing I read was My Riot by Rick Spears. It's 3 stars is what I gave it. I'm pretty sure it's out now. I don't have it written down, and I'm not going to look it up. It's okay. The pros, it's an interesting nostalgic plot about a girl who is a ballerina, and she's too big to be a ballerina. She doesn't look like the other ballerinas, and she decides to join a band in the 90s. That's it. That's the plot. It's coming of age, which is interesting in a graphic novel. I don't think all graphic novels need to be some big production. Sometimes they can be small slice of life stories. I mean, one of my favorite graphic novels is Fun Home, and it's a tragic comedy, and it's really just a coming of age story. We love that. Cons, I couldn't tell it was 90s, and I am your resident 90s kid, and I didn't pick it up. Maybe it's because I was a kid through most of the early 90s, and I think these guys are teenagers, but it didn't have the vibe specifically of being 90s to me. This could have been happening now, or style-wise, and I didn't get it. The characters are not interesting. I mean, even the main character, after a while, I'm like, I don't care. Like, you haven't given me any motivations for some of the stuff she's done. You're skipping straight to the results of it. I need to see the character development. It's just rushed. It was rushed all the way over. The last chapter, oh my God. It went through like 10 years' time in one chapter. This was, it felt like the beginning of a series of novels about this character, but it's clearly not. Read it. The art is unique. I think it's worth it, and maybe that it's a very quick, bold read, but it's not like gonna change your life. Unless it does, I guess. I mean, any book can do that. I gave it 3 stars. You may give it 5. This is just me telling you it exists. The next book I read, it was the last book I read before the reading rush, was Burn Our Bodies Down by Rory Power. I gave this one 3 stars. It's pretty high 3 stars. It's probably 3.5. Pros. It's an interesting plot. I mean, I read through it until I figured out what was going on. There's a lot of gore. If you want, like, Stephen King light, this is a good way to do that, because the things that are described are pretty visceral, and it's pretty well paced. It is what it is. I think there were some moments where it felt like I was being told stuff that didn't make sense for when the character would know it, but it is what it is. Cons, it's a highly convoluted plot. Good God, it wraps up so silly. I don't get it. I didn't get enough explanation, and some books can get away with that. Some books can get away with being like, this is just the way it is. But this one is not one of those books. And it's just too nicely wrapped up. I have way too many questions for the nice wrapped up ending that I got. And I don't know how I stand on that. This is the first Rory Power book I've ever read. I've never read Wilder Girls. And I mean, I'll probably still pick up Wilder Girls because I've heard good things, but this one maybe didn't hit so well. The next thing I read was for the Reading Rush. It actually was my first audiobook through NetGalley, which was a really interesting experience. I haven't gotten approved for any more. I think this was an auto approval. It was The Shadows by Alex North. I give it 3 stars. It is out now, so you can read it now. Pro. It's pretty good narrative cast. It has a male narrator and a female narrator. I do not know their names off the top of my head, which is bad, but they did a really good job of separating not only their identities within the novel, but the different characters within their sections sounded unique and different. And I could follow along pretty well. Like, I think I listened to double speed. So if I can listen to it in double speed and tell where the different characters are talking, it's not too bad. The plot twists were not cliche. I love a good thriller that does not involve, one of those really cliche plot twists. You know the ones I'm talking about. But I'm not going to mention what it is here in case you decide to pick it up. It has a pretty engaging, well-paced plot. I did get a little bored in places setting up the world of the novel, and like it's a past and present thing. I know I'm not actually explaining the plots here, but like you can look it up on Goodreads. This is a thriller about like a kid childhood thing that goes wrong, and it haunts people. The con characters are kind of hard to track just for me. Like, I know the voices were all different, but it was still hard to put a name with the voice. And it was a little nicely wrapped up. Just kind of happened in like half a chapter. I barely caught it. Like, and then I realized, oh shit, the novel's over. So that is what it is.